Good morning, everybody. Glad to see you all today. Welcome to the 7th episode of Hangout with the Boss. Today we would be looking at the topic, the healing power in our story. It would tentatively be more of like a question and answer session, where AVM Gbadebo himself would be taking your questions and he would be shedding some light as well on any issues that you have, and obviously the opportunity as well for each and everyone to share their stories, because we all have unique stories as CP families. So I would just share the program for today. It's quite straightforward. Give me a second. So yes, the program for today. So we're already on item 2, which is the welcome address. We just finished playing the Benola song. Then we'll go straight to the healing power in our story, which will be followed by a question and answer segment. We already have some questions that have been pre-sent from some of our CP family members. So we'll take those ones first, and then we would take live questions from anyone who has during the session, and then we'll follow with the closing remarks and votes of thanks. And we should be done with this session hopefully by 1:30 p.m. so that we all can get on with our Saturday activities. So without further ado, I would like to pass the microphone to AVM Femi Gbadebo to speak. Thank you very much, everyone. Let's have a lovely session.
Thank you very much, Mr. D. So good to see all of you here. Happy Saturday. Good afternoon. Already we have 12 people on board. I see there's some questions or at least some comments coming in on the chat box. We'll look at them too as we go on. I may not have time to call you one-on-one to recognize you, but towards the end, I hope that we can, open our screen so that we can at least take a shot and see the people who are here. So once again, thank you, welcome, and we'll take on new people as they come. As you all know, I'm a retired military officer, and there are things that I've learned in the course of my work as a soldier, as Nigerians we call us. But I'm also a qualified instructor pilot, and I even went beyond that to become a trainer of instructors. So I trained instructors on how to teach people to fly. I went ahead to become a staff at JAGI, where I taught middle-level officers on the administrative requirements of working as a staff at various commands, and also preparing them to take major command appointments. And my final teaching appointment in the military was as a staff at the Defense College, where I was involved in teaching what we call the higher levels of defense management. What this has taught me and what this has shown me over the years is that I'm a teacher and I talk a lot. Those who have spoken with me on the phone or one-on-one will find that, yes, that's it. That's my gift. That's the best I can do. I can break things down to a level where hopefully people will understand. And to be able to do that, I have to do my homework. I have to get myself to also understand what the issues are. And so, for instance, when we started Benola, one of the major problems that we had with our board was this aspect of it has no cure. And it took a lot of talking and a lot of documentation and all. But even at that, there are some of them who still say, no, we cannot take that. God says this, God does say. So if you go to our website, you'll see that we modified that statement of there's no cure, or it has no cure, to say as of now. And at the time we started Benola, my son was 16 years old, Olaoluwa, who used to face a Benola. And all we knew was him and the way that the condition has affected him. In the sense that at 25, he's nonverbal. Yes, he says some things, and when you hang around him long enough, you begin to understand what he wants. He says yes or no, or so on and so forth. He calls mama, he calls everybody uncool, including myself. But there's a way he says uncool that you know he's talking to you. He still wears diapers. He's still fed. But he's a bundle of joy in the sense that he laughs a lot. He blows kisses. You know, he has his own means of communication. And you can feel it when you're around him. There are people who have come to the house or who have met him somewhere on a hospital visit and who instantly just hit it off with him. One of the things that most people say when they finally do understand the situation in our house is that they tell my wife, you mean you have a child like this? And it doesn't show on your face. I see you everywhere, you look happy, and so on. And it's very interesting that, it's because we very quickly learn to accept our faith and begin to manage it the best way we could. I also found that, initially I was a guest on a lot of radio, TV programs, talking about cerebral palsy, teaching people about cerebral palsy, so to speak. But at some stage, I got fed up, when you are brought in with a guest who is a medical doctor, who really doesn't understand cerebral palsy or even is a pediatrician, and whose contribution to cerebral palsy, to the discussion, is all academic. And I started getting frustrated. And one day after a show, someone said, maybe we should bring some other doctors. And I said, wait, you don't seem to get it. I don't want to quarrel with somebody on the air, but I will not sit down to have somebody giving the wrong information. I'll give you an example. There was one radio station that invited me with a pediatrician from VI, and the woman came with photocopies and some things. And luckily, I went with a couple of Benola magazines and some stuff. And we had about 20 minutes before the show. And when she saw the documents that I brought from Benola, honestly, after a little preamble in the first 10 minutes of the 30-minute show, she just resigned and allowed me to run the whole show. Okay. So what am I saying here? That I didn't go on a course. I didn't go anywhere really to learn about CP. I Googled, I studied online, I interacted with experts. And if you go to our page and you see the kind of, what I call it, the topics, our lecture topics from our first one, which talked about cerebral palsy, the stigma, the fear, and reality. We at Benola have been the ones who, based on our questions, based on what is bugging us, have looked for experts. And I've said, this is what we want people to know about. Can you handle this for us? And I'll tell you, sometimes the lecturer does, we always give them the topic like 2 months before. And sometimes after 3 or 4 weeks, the lecturer will call me and say, AVM, this thing is interesting. I'm learning a lot of things, And so when they come and they deliver the lecture, it improves my understanding of cerebral palsy. And it adds value to the general body of knowledge working in CP. But I also recall the first time that a TV station interviewed my wife. You must know that most of the people in the media who handle health issues are women, just as most of the people who are in the disability sector are women. And after the interview, the lady said, AVM, we don't want you again. You are too serious about this thing. That you see, your wife is passionate. She was moved. There was a time she was even like she was going to cry. And I said, well, that's a woman for you. I'm a man. And I'm looking at the most serious aspect of these things. I'm not out here. It's not as if I'm not emotional. It's not as if I'm not affected. It's not as if when I listen to parents talk on CP Thursday, I am not moved. And there are times when, and the parents who are involved will tell you that I actually reach out to them the next day and we have a chat. Because I either feel that they are not telling enough of the story, or the story has not really passed the right kind of information. Very early, we decided that we were going to focus on advocacy. And many people thought, that's not the way to go. Get a home, put a few children there so that people can come, see the children, get touched, and they'll donate. And I always said, no, people are doing that already. The game has not changed. And so we started to say, look, our work is to educate those who are in positions of authority, those who make policy, those who can make things happen. And to do that, we must tell them the reality of what's happening out there. We must share stories. But as we started to run into adults who have gone to school, who have gone to universities, and so on, some of them have jobs. Now I know some who even are married and have children. And the thing is that these are interesting situations. Our understanding, mine and everybody in Benola, continues to open up. And I'm sure when most of you heard the power in the story, you're probably expecting me to preach a sermon to you. I understand Bible quotations that talk about that. I know that when we go to church, they're always telling us to come and tell our testimonies. But the truth is, my understanding is testimony is telling your story. If people do not understand the story, how do you get help? How do they know how to help you? You see, most people insult a disabled person, especially like, a lawyer who has polio or something who's trying to enter a fine hotel like the Oriental Hotel. Some of the security people may say, you can't enter here. Meanwhile, he's going there for a conference or a workshop. On the other hand, some of the people who are coming out of the hotel, and I've had real life stories, will reach into their pocket and bring out 200, 300 naira or whatever and give to the guy. And sometimes guys say, excuse me, I'm not a beggar. And to the other person, it looks arrogant. But that's the reality, because the mindset of our people is that is where they should be. They shouldn't be in certain places, and they shouldn't get a job. They shouldn't work in the right environment. And so we've always insisted look, the first level of cure is for you to even understand what the situation is. Once you understand the situation and you accept it, including this fact that there's no cure, then you stop looking for a cure. You start focusing on, okay, what can I do? And what can I do is about how do I give my child a better condition of life? And the only way, if your friends and family keep saying, go and do this, and you don't do it, many of them will walk away from you. It's like, well, you don't want to improve your situation. It is you that must find a way to communicate. The story of Benola is that almost every year, like now, we're approaching December, I'm totally frustrated. I'm totally confused as to where do we go next? How do we handle the next year? How do we raise funds to do some of the things that we want to do? And you see, when you talk to your friends, when you talk to people who can genuinely help, and they show you that they are not understanding you, it is not their problem. It is your problem. It is my problem. And that's why I'm constantly going back to the drawing board, consulting people, having one-on-one sessions to figure out how else can we tell the story. And so when we do CP Thursday, I noticed that one of the things is a lot of those who come to CP Thursday are telling history. History is good. We must know where we're coming from. But if we focus too much on history and too much on the child, then honestly, you have not really told the story. The fact that your child could not do certain things and suddenly can do some things, or some doctor was not nice to you when you are in labor and your child is 17 years old. The question is that what's happened in these 17 years? How did you get to this 17 years? That's the real story. How did you manage to cope with work, with relationships, with everything? It's not easy for you. It's not easy for everybody else. So if you tell your story properly, you'll find people who say, let me reach out to you. I find people also asking questions, or too many people say, oh, fine baby, lovely baby, all these things. Yeah, it makes the mother feel good. It makes the father feel good. But is that really a contribution? A contribution is when you have an opportunity to say, I had a similar thing happen to me, and this is what I did. Or this is how I managed to come over it. And everybody's learning. And also, if we begin to make sure, even if we don't have the name or the phone number of the individual, we can call admin to say, look, can I have the phone number of the lady that spoke yesterday? Because I want to call her. I want to encourage her. I want to share some more of my story with her, or I want to find out some more things from her that probably could help my own situation. So we must get into the habit of first of all, thinking over our story as to what we want to say and saying it as much as possible. Each time we say it, it becomes different, but we also figure what is the impact on the people I am telling. What exactly am I looking for by telling the story? If it doesn't happen, then we haven't happened. One of my major disappointments in this job is that I've run into so many adults with cerebral palsy. I'm talking of people who are 47, 52 years, 53 years old. But nobody around them is willing to tell the story of living with this special person or helping this person to come up. So most of you have heard my son Dio talk about taking care of his brother. You've heard my wife talk about managing a loud one. But you see, the problem out there is that a lot of these adults, they try to tell their story. But the truth is that there are so many things you don't even know or you don't think are important. I'll take it before I close what I'm saying here. I'll take the Busola story of last Thursday. I've known Busola now for close to 9 years. And we've spent a lot of time talking on the phone and so on. But it took her mother's presentation last week, Tuesday, to bring out certain things. For instance, I know Busola is brilliant. I was one of the happiest people in the world when I heard that the bank where she went for interview sent her for a medical test and she passed. That means the test was conducted by a medical authority that the bank approved of. Then she did an interview and so on. Yeah, she's gone to Babcock, she's done this. But when her mother stated that right from secondary school, WAEC and all, Busola had been scoring B's and A's and all. I mean, it's like, Busola never told me that. Another thing, the mother talked about when, at a time when she used to take Busola to the bus stop, the park for her to take the bus to school, and she'll go and bring her back. And after a while, she got to the park, and can you imagine the touts, the motor park boys, and go and say, "Mommy, don't be worried about this girl. Just leave her. We'll see her safely to school and we'll bring her back home." This is the kind of story that honestly, I'm not even aware exists. The stories I hear of the stigma, the negative talk about bus conductors and everybody else. And she just went on and on to say so many things. And at the end of the day, man, I learned a lot. And I'm going to put it on YouTube, or I'll put it on YouTube. I'll save the link. I hope some of you will take time to look at this thing. We're talking of a mother who started raising this child. There was something else, again, she said. At about 2, one doctor, gave Busola glasses. And some time later, they went to see another doctor. And the person said, "This girl doesn't need these glasses." And actually took the glasses and broke them. Crazy, right? But the truth is that as of today, I know more than 10, including a 46, 47-year-old lady. What is even the 50-something-year-old lady in America who has 4 sons? None of them is wearing glasses. Yes, some of them have a squint and so on. There's a serious message in this because some of our parents are being encouraged by specialists who think that instead of focusing on that neck that is not steady or the child's inability to sit, they are thinking of something else, which is their own area of specialty, and asking you to go and look for a huge sum of money to come and treat this small problem. And those of them I'm able to talk to, what I ask them is that, okay, so somebody is trying to fix the eyes or is trying to fix the ears so you can hear better and so on. Is that going to solve cerebral palsy? Is that going to stop the stiffness? And so on and so forth. So even when somebody tells you something, you need to get a second opinion. Even a third opinion is not bad before you start running around to do certain things. To tell our story, we're not always going to get platforms. I'm talking about maybe like Benola Boss, and like I'm doing now. It took me a while to get you people to be able to come and listen to me. But you have social media platforms. You have your Facebook, you have your WhatsApp, you have your Instagram, and so on, where you can begin to just talk. It doesn't matter if you don't get more than 3 or 4 followers or likes. The important thing is that you are practicing and you're able to go and review that write-up. Sometimes, look, there are things I post And sometimes I delete them because I see that there's no response. I thought there was going to be some serious response to this. But at the end of the day, you start getting better at telling your story, and you start controlling your story. See, Nigerians are very nice, lovely people. Everybody wants to help you. And it's very strange the way they want to help you. You are going to church with somebody, you think that, oh, this person is so religious and all that. And then suddenly, because you tell your story, they suddenly show up and tell you about one man in one village, in one corner, one whatever, who prays for people. And the question now is that, hey, auntie, I thought you are a church person. You say, look, people don't just stay in one place, and so on and so forth. So we need to be very careful. I also have this thing about a lot of people, those who believe, maybe because of the church they attend, that they should not state what their problem is. So someone tells you, please pray for me. And I'm wondering, what is the problem? If you don't state the case, it is difficult. God has his table full. He has prayer requests full. You must be able to say, this is it. I'm having this problem or that problem. There are even people who will say, oh, today is my son's birthday. Wish him happy birthday. But you've not told us the name of your son. You've not told us how old he is. So we must learn to tell our story, maybe without being too open, but at least in such a way that the person or the people who are hearing it will understand. Of course, there are those who laugh at you, but you'll be shocked that there are those who will come back later and they will like that. Look, you went to school, you have classmates, you're going to a place of worship, you have people who are worshiping with you. All it takes is one person. The story has been told over and over. God will not come to cook rice for you. He will not come to put money in your account. All these people will say they woke up and saw money. Please disregard those things. Are all scams. You must work, you must have met somebody, you must have shared a story, and somebody believes that, yes, you need help. And then they go out, they talk to other people. One of the easiest things to do in this world is to ask for help on behalf of somebody. And you'll be surprised that even the person you are asking to help you help somebody, when someone asks you, what of you, don't you need help? And when you say, this person's case is very serious, so they will do some strange things. I know I told you some time ago when we were asking for money for palliatives, and one lady called and said, how much is Laulu's diapers for the month? And I told her. And so she sent some money. And she said, this amount is for Laulu's diaper, and this is for your palliatives. So I didn't ask her, but she knows because she talks to us and so on. So please, let us begin to become more comfortable with sharing our stories. The first time will not be easy, but with each attempt, it gets better. And we begin to shift more to how is this CP affecting me as the mother, father, sibling of this child? It's not a place to come and telling your story. Yeah, you'll meet some people, you need to explain CP to them. But when you are talking to parents who have children with CP, it's not a place for you to start defining CP and turning it to an academic environment. It's about how are you coping? How are things with you and your family? How are the other children coping? I remember I called a lady, one of our mothers here, who told me she couldn't wait for her children, the adult children, to come back from school so that they'll take over taking care of their brother. And I had to say, come, you have to remember that these kids are also coming home on a holiday and they're growing and they also need to socialize with their friends. So we must be careful not to turn them into full-time carers, which unfortunately may be the thing that can turn them away from their sibling as against making them the full whatever of their siblings. there are people, like, I don't intend to call names, but I'll tell you that a lot of the adults with cerebral palsy who are now going around doing one thing or the other as far as CP are concerned, I've had calls to talk to them at one stage or another to say, what are you doing? You see, it is important for us to stay in our lane. It is important for us to focus on this particular issue that we have. As a mother of a child with CP, if you spend too much time, you see, if you're trying to figure out what is Down syndrome, what is autism, what is all these things, attending their workshops and conferences, I think you're wasting valuable time. Because that time could be used to turn you into the next CP authority that we need in this country, and we need as many as we can get. So take a look at what is in your hand. That condition that God has put in your hand, that is you, young man or young woman, and make them your goal in life. First of all, to understand the issue and what to do to give them the best quality of life, and then to begin to champion their cause, to be the one that sees to it that society reacts better to them and their boy gets. So I'd like to stop here. Like I said, it wasn't supposed to be a lecture, but I do talk a lot. But really, what I would like is to react to questions, answer them. My dear wife is around. She could also pop in sometimes to answer some questions. Their contributions, that opportunity to share your own aspect of the story. They're just a whole bunch of things. And I just think this is another way that we need to interact with each other and become more comfortable with that unique condition that we're living in our home. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, AVM Femi Gbadebo, also known as Daddy in these corners. So we'll go straight to the next segment, which will be the question and answer. You know, as I said earlier, there have been some questions that have been asked earlier by some CP parents. So we'll take those ones first. But in the midst of the question and answer segment, you know, when we're answering these pre-questions, if you have questions, you could write them on the chat box, or when we're done answering questions, you can raise your hand on the live video and we'll take your questions. Thank you. So we'll start. So let's start. So this is, sorry, let me go. This question says, how can parents that are not financially buoyant handle a child living with CP and they want little or good life for that child? I'm guessing they want the best life for that child. This is Father B, the father of a 13-year-old boy living with CP. So would you want to answer the questions one by one, or take maybe two or three at a go?
I believe there are some comments or questions already on the chat box. Let me see quickly. Oh, well, let's start it off. This is from a particular person, and the other two questions are from somebody else. So let me take this one, and let's see if people warm up and we get more questions. I'm seeing here somebody's laughing at what I said, that men don't cry. It's not exactly that men don't cry, but men are not known to be too physical about their emotions. But believe me, men cry. And sometimes it's women that make men cry. And other conditions. When a father is not in a position to help his family, his child, financially or otherwise to solve a problem. It's like failure. And trust me, a lot of men cry, even if it's not openly. So I'll take this first question about financially buoyant. And I laugh because the impression, content in what we use the resources that we have, no matter how little, and that we find satisfaction, contentment in that which the Lord Almighty has done for us. Remember, we say we should pray every day, and we should pray in thanksgiving. That's why you have praise and worship and all these sort of things, because if you're not grateful for that which you have, the chances of getting a lot more is slim. And then if you're not using what you have diligently, it will look like very little. Whether you're able to buy diapers for your child, or as it used to be in the past, that you use like napkins, because when I was small and up to a certain stage, there was nothing like diapers in Nigeria. You had napkins, people bought the white towels, which is very difficult to maintain. You cut them into a V shape and you just use a safety pin to hold it in place. And of course, you have to soak them in some kind of bleach and wash them regularly, otherwise they get discolored and all that. But that's what mothers had to do until maybe, and even some mothers are doing now. And the same thing goes for a lot of things. I've seen a lot of pictures of children being force-fed with pap, and people say that must have been nasty, but I don't recall any child dying in those days that we're aware of because of being force-fed. And I mean, I remember the thing where the mother would now press the child's stomach and say, okay, full. And then maybe you have 2 or 3 more children, you're next, and you come and you are turned upside down. And every time you try to cry, of course, a lot of pap goes in. Those were the options that were available to mothers at that time. And I think if we're lucky to get some of these mothers who are in their 70s or and above, who took care of special children, to tell us what they went through, how they managed in those days, we will realize that our perception of being poor is the fact that we are competing or trying to manage our children at a level that is much higher than what we have. I remember the experience with some people, some women who went to Oshodi and how one of them finally came to the conclusion that, hey, instead of everybody paying for a physiotherapist, if we can get one physiotherapist to come to our area, that's where networking matters, then we can negotiate for a lower price from this physiotherapist. And he knows that in coming to that area, he will be able to do 4 or 5 children in one go. And so prices come down. The other one is that as we attend physio, we also have to observe what the physiotherapist is doing. And we realize that when we get home, we can teach anybody else, whether it's a nanny, the daddy, or the older siblings, how to do some of those manipulations. You see, physio for a child under 10, it's not so much of a physical thing, more of, especially when they're under 5, it's more of play as a form of therapy, where you get them to be involved in some activity like following the ball with your eye, trying to catch the ball with your hand, trying to reach out for something to collect from mommy, and so on. So it's all a question of working together with people who have been down the road, people who have older children, and trying to share experiences of what we're learning. Honestly, when you pay maybe 5,000 for something. The rich man is who you think is probably paying 25, 30,000 for the same thing. And so at the end of the day, the real issue here is not how much A or B is earning, it's how much disposable income they have based on the intelligence. I've told people, young people sometimes, that look, having a car can be a major liability in your life. Because if you don't have a car and you have, let's say, 20,000 on Friday, you know where you can go, you know what you can do, and still have maybe 5,000 naira on Monday morning for transport to work and every other and feeding. But if you have a car and you are ready to go to a wedding on Saturday, that car could pack up on Friday evening or early on Saturday, and you end up with your mechanic the whole Saturday. You miss the wedding, you have spent a lot of money, and at the end of the day, the car may still not be on the road. So these are the issues that we need to understand. So I honestly would like to say that no parent who has a special child should ever be considered as being financially buoyant. They're just maybe able to spend a little more than you. And you are thinking that, okay, if you have a lot more, you'll be able to do a lot more. But I know people, even on this platform here, who will tell you that by telling their story, help came in terms of wheelchair, in terms of diapers, in terms of financial assistance occasionally, and so on. So if somebody just feels for you and decides to give you 250,000 out of the blues, what do? Some parents will put it in some kind of account and begin to say, this is my special son's money, and be using it only for that child. And there are some who will say, wow, I have suffered so much. This weekend, I'll go and spoil myself. So they'll go and watch a movie, they'll go and do this and do that. By Monday, maybe 100 or so, buy some clothes. You understand? And by Tuesday, they're back to square one with some assets that, when you really look at it, you say, did I really need these clothes or something? But you just felt, okay, let me spoil myself. So it's about having a little bit of understanding of where life has put you and the challenges that you have as against another person. Okay, thank you, Gary. Can I have the second one?
Okay, thank you. Before we go to the second one, Mrs. Gbadebo wanted to add some few things. So if you could unmute, please, to this question.
Done.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry you cannot see my face because I'm recovering from an illness, but I'm happy to see everybody. On that particular question about what do you do if you are not financially buoyant and you have a 13-year-old and you want a better life for your child, I would say do the best that you can. God knows your situation, and you yourself, you know your situation. Learn as much as you can about the condition. Attend Zoom meetings like this to learn more. Benola has been there, a lot of information on our website. If you join the CP family, you meet other families. Then you know you are not alone. And when the good things start coming, they will also touch you. You can read, and then you help your child. The most important thing a child needs is love. It is not money. Your husband told you about my son. It's not money. Anybody that passes him, he knows. And we hail him. His brothers give him high five. He understands all those things. Once your child knows that you love him or her, it is not the money. Just try the best that you can and tell your story. When people are asking, don't hide that child and talk about the other 2 or 3 that are okay. You see that one child that you think is nothing might be the one that will feed all of you later if God sends help. You don't know how. You don't know how God will send help. But tell your story. I have a child with CP. It just starts like that. Oh, how old is the child? He's 13. I've been managing him since. but I know that God will continue to help me. You don't know who you are talking to. The next thing, somebody might just say, okay, God will just send the person, give this person something, or help this person this way. You get a wheelchair, you get a referral to a doctor, you get somebody to pay for his physiotherapy. Tell your story. It is your story about your child and the love you have for your child. I know all of you that are here. You are here because you love your child on this platform today. Because everybody has something to do. But you want to learn more. You want to see how you can better the life of that child. It is not by accident. God doesn't make accidents. So accept your situation, love your child, do the best that you can with the little that you have. And when the right time comes, God will send helpers in different ways. That's my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I think we should take one question from the chat. Then we'll go back to, so we'll take one question from the chat, one question from the pre-asked questions. So there's one here from, I think this will be a Mrs. Folake, okay, which says, how do you manage seizures when they occur in the absence of a health official?
Okay. Good question. And I noticed that it's one of the questions that parents ask at CP Thursday. Every time someone talks about their child, questions come. Does he or she have seizures? You'll expect some follow-up on that. Sometimes there's no real follow-up on that question. But I guess they're asking because they have their own experience with seizures. Seizures can be quite unsettling for the family, for the parents. And even if you have a carer or somebody who volunteers to stay with your child, like you take the child to school, the first time they see the seizures is very scary. But the truth is that it comes in different forms. Some are very silent in the sense that all you see is the child just seems to be in a state of suspended animation, eyes not very, eyelids flickering, and the limbs like shaking, but not the same kind of thing you see with a typical epilepsy where, the whole place goes crazy. But it's still seizure all the same, and it has a negative effect on the brain of a child. So it is always recommended that the child should not be in that situation for long. The simplest cure that I know is to sedate the child so that the child calms down, probably goes to sleep. When